your practice. This practice is all about the prevention of yoga butt or proximal hamstring tendinopathy. So that is the pain or irritation that you experience around the ischial tuberosity. So this practice is good even if you are experiencing that pain. Just kind of back off when you need to, take things easy when you need to. But more importantly, this is a great practice to prevent that from happening in the first place. So we'll be adding some progressive load, some variable loads to the hamstrings, working them in a slightly different way than what we normally do in our yoga practice. You are going to need some props and things for this one. You'll need something to enable your feet to slide. So I'm using some sliders, but you could use a blanket on your floor or socks on your floor, whatever enables your feet to slide. I'm also going to demonstrate a variation using a foam roller and a ball. If you don't have those options, you can still just use a blanket on your floor, or your sliders or your socks will suffice. I'm also going to use a step or stool. You can use just the steps in your home or a small table if you've got that available. And then I'm also using some weights. If you do not have weights, that's okay. You can do this without weights, or you can use something heavy that you have around the home. So just kind of make do with what you've got, and then you might feel inclined to go and purchase those items later on. So we'll begin lying down on our backs. And just have your sliding surface handy, but maybe just over to one side. Or actually, bring your sliding surface underneath your feet to start with. And we'll just start by tuning into the breath and starting to allow that breath to move into all sides of the rib cage. If it helps, you can bring your hands onto the sides of the ribs just to expand into that area. And you might start to modulate your breath rhythm, so perhaps 5 counts in and 5 counts out. And then start to walk your feet a little further away from your butt and turn your toes to point up towards the sky. So you're just digging down through the heels, and you've got a longer lever bridge than what we would normally do in a yoga practice. Bring your arms alongside the body, press down through the heels, curl the tailbone to the knees, and lift your hips up. So we're going for a static long lever bridge hold. Already you should feel a bit of work through the hamstrings. So this is what we call an isometric hold, which is basically going to turn on more of the motor units within the muscle. Helps us to send more neurological drive to the muscles, so that as we move through the rest of the practice, hopefully there's a little bit more of that muscle available to us. And sometimes this action can create a little cramp, so if that happens, just come out, come back in. Know that cramp is quite usual, particularly when we start to try and strengthen into the hamstrings. Nice, slowly lower your hips down to the floor. Try not to move your lower back as you draw your knees in and stack them over your hips. Connect your right hand to your left thigh. Press them against each other so you feel that contralateral link and your core start to light up. Then without you moving your lower back, start to extend your right leg away and your left arm overhead. And then as you exhale, pull them back in. And do that again. Extend them away. Press the hand and the thigh against each other. And slowly draw the knee and the arm back in. Again, extend away. Pay particular attention to your low back. Try not to let it move. Draw everything in. Good, few more. Really paying attention to the back rib stain on the floor. That connection between the hand and the thigh. So just start to light up through the core and create this condition of proximal stability, distal mobility. Good, one more. And come back in, release your heels back onto your sliding surface. Toes point towards the sky. Dig down through the heels, curl the tailbone to the knees, and lift your hips up again. And again, pausing here, trying to modulate your breath to 5 counts in, 5 counts out. And you'll notice that being on this sliding surface, you're having to work the hamstrings a little more to stop your legs from sliding away. Good, few more breaths. So we want to hold these first isometric bridges for about 45 seconds. Good, slowly lower your hips down to the floor. And again, without moving your lower back, draw your knees in, stack them over your hips. Connect your left hand to the front of your right thigh this time. Press them against each other. Feel the back ribs in contact with the floor. And then as you inhale, reach your left leg away, your right arm overhead. And exhale, bring them back in. So as you move through this TVA bug, just moving with your breath, try to keep your back completely still. And that may mean making the movement of the arm and the leg a little smaller. You don't have to go all the way long, and you don't have to get close to the floor. What's more important is that you maintain that connection between the hand and the thigh, and the lower back nice and stable. Go a couple more. Good, and then release your heels back onto your sliding surface. So if the double leg isometric bridge is feeling pretty spicy for you, you're just going to stay with that option. Otherwise, we're going to add a little bit more load by making it single leg. So press through the heels, toes are pointing to the sky, raise your hips up. Curl the tailbone towards the knees, pour the weight into your left leg and kick your right leg to the sky. Try to keep the hips up nice and high. And because you're on that sliding surface again, you're going to have to really work the hamstring, that action of pulling in to stop the leg from sliding too far away. And again, we want to hold it for about 45 seconds. And just slowing down your breath rhythm, 5 counts in, 5 counts out. Nice, and then lower your right heel to the sliding surface, pour the weight into that leg, left leg goes to the sky. Again, just seeing if you can modulate your breath, find a nice even rhythm and keep the hips up nice and high. And again, if that leg cramps, that's okay, just come down, come back in. And cramping is a kind of natural phenomenon when we're starting to strengthen into areas that are a little weaker. It's commonly called neurological confusion, so I like to say celebrate that. You've found an area that needs some strength. Good, lower your left heel to the sliding surface, lower your hips back to the ground. And again, without moving your lower back, draw your knees in, stack them over your hips. Connect your right hand to the front of your left thigh, left arm goes to the sky. And start to open and close the right arm, the right leg rather, left arm. Again, maintaining that awareness of your lower back. And try not to flare the ribs as you extend the leg away. So we're really starting to access that deep core, the transverse abs. And feel the sense of the spine staying stable as the legs move. Good, and then switch to the other side. Left hand presses to the right thigh. Start to extend the other limbs away. And remembering it's not about how far you go, but how you go. So really trying to maintain that awareness through your lower back, through the back ribs. If you're keeping that connection between the hand and the thigh, things should be getting pretty spicy by now. Good, and then release your heels back onto your sliding surface. This time turn your heels out. So you've got more external rotation. We're going to come into that same single leg bridge, or you're welcome to do double leg if the single leg was a little bit too much. Press down through the heels, raise your hips to the sky, pour the weight to the left leg, right leg high. So you're staying externally rotated. It's just going to light up more of that lateral hamstring outer area of the back of the thigh. Good, last breath. Place the heel down, turn that leg out, pull the weight into the right leg, left leg goes to the sky. And you may notice in turning the leg out that perhaps that creates a little bit more cramp or some new awareness of muscles that perhaps need to strengthen a little more. And maybe there's a difference between right and left side body. So just noticing that. It's really important that we vary the load, so not just going in the sagittal, but getting that external and internal rotation so we get all aspects of the hamstring. Nice, place the heel down, lower your hips to the floor. This time just hug your knees in and take a little rock and roll from side to side. I'm going to move into some hamstring slide outs. So making sure you've got enough space in front of you for your legs to slide out. Heels are going to go back onto your sliding surface again. So either your blanket, your socks, and we're going to start by turning the legs in. So toes are going to point in like pigeon-toed, knees are going to come towards each other. Press down through your heels, lift your hips up. Try and stay up on the heels and slide your legs out, keeping that internal rotation and taking about 5 seconds to slowly slide out, keeping the hips up high, knees slightly bent until you're at your end range, and then let the hips come down, slide the legs back in. Turn the legs in again, toes in, lift up. Same thing, nice slow slide out. And maybe you're noticing a little bit more awareness through your inner thighs, that inner hamstring, maybe a little bit more cramp sensation. You're welcome. Good, bring the legs back in. Again, lift up, still internally rotated, sliding out, taking around about 5 seconds, keeping the hips up nice and high until just at the last moment, and then the hips can come down. Slide back in. Let's do one more in this internal rotation. Slowly sliding out. Good. As the legs come back in, you're going to turn the legs out this time, so external rotation. So toes pointing out to the sides of your mat. Raise your hips to the sky. And same thing, nice slow slide out. See if you can take that whole 5 seconds to slide out. So this eccentric work, really good for helping us gain control over the full length of the muscle. Go draw the legs in, lift up. It's also good for lighting up more of the brain. And we use the eccentric work to build the strength to be able to do the concentric work, which is the shortening phase, which is coming up. Good, lift up. Again, sliding out in that externally rotated position. Nice, one more like this. And then bringing the legs back in. Now, you have the option to stay in the sagittal plane, so toes straight ahead, sliding out just as we have been doing. Or this time we're going to go into single leg variations. So coming up on your heels, pour the weight into the right leg if you want to do single. Same thing, slide the leg out nice and slowly. As the leg slides out, the hip comes to the floor. It's a little bit more work for that hamstring. Come back in, lift your hips up, switch sides. Pour the weight into the left leg and slowly slide out. Now, if this is too much, just stick with both heels on your paddles or your blanket and slide both legs out long, staying in this sagittal plane. Good, switch sides. Raise the hips up. Keep the tailbone curled towards the knees as you slide out. So you're maintaining that really strong posterior tilt through the pelvis. Good, switching sides. Oops, where's my paddle? Nice and slowly. Good, one more each side. Pull the weight to the right, Keep the hips up high as you slide out. Make sure you're just on the heel still. Last one. Good, and then hug your knees in, just take a little rock and roll. And this time bring your hands on top of your knees and we'll just do a little push-pull action. Again, just waking up the core, the hip flexors. So the right hand is going to push the right knee away as the left hand pulls the left knee in, but the knees are resisting. And then switch, so left hand pushes, right hand pulls, the legs are resisting. And again, push, pull, resist. Push, pull, and resist. Push, pull, resist. And resist. Good, last couple. And then rest the feet on the floor. You might like a little windshield wiper action. Now we're going to move into the concentric phase. So this is going to be the spicy one. You're welcome to use your paddles or your sliding surface, or this is where I'm going to give you the option to either use a foam roller or a ball. So I'll demonstrate with the foam roller first and then with the ball. And we're going to aim for between 10 and 15 of these. So see how you go. They're pretty spicy. You might maybe get to 6 or 8 this first round. So let's see. So with your heels on your foam roller, you're going to dig down, so your knees are going to stay slightly bent. Lift your hips up, keep the hips up, and then slide the foam roller in, and then back out again. Slide the foam roller in, and back out. So this is what it's like on the foam roller. If you're going to use your ball, your hips will be a little higher. So same action though, the heels on the ball, raise your hips to the sky and then pull in and extend. So you get a little bit more stabilization work using a ball as it is a little bit wobblier. Good. So choosing whichever variation you like, you're probably up to about maybe 3 or 4 by now. So keep going. I'm going to go back to the foam roller for the last few. Good. See if you can do 3 more. Nicely done. Lower the hips down. You might give your legs a little hug in, or maybe just give your legs a little wriggle. Anything that you need. And we are going to do 1 more round. So ideally, you'd probably want to do 3 rounds of this. For the purpose of this video, I'm just going to do 2 rounds. If you want to change what surface you're using, so maybe using a ball this time or a foam roller if you have it, you can do that. So putting your heels onto your surface. If you're using your sliding surface, obviously your legs are out long and you're pulling them in and then sliding back out again. So when you're ready, pressing down, lift up, and then pull the heels in, extend away. You also have the option to turn the legs out, so making it more external rotated, or turning the legs in, so you've got more internal rotation. And then if you really want to spice it up, single leg, like we did with the eccentrics. Good, last couple. Good, and then relax down. So obviously You just choose the variation that works for you. So if you're not quite at single leg on the concentric, stay with the double leg, but see if you can play around with the angles. So turning the legs out, turning the legs in. All right, let's come up to stand. So rather than stretching out the hamstrings, what we're going to do now is a little bit of lengthening under load. So tendons really like slow, heavy loads. And hamstrings, or any muscle really, likes that slow, heavy load with weight. So this is where you're going to use your weight if you have it. If you don't have it, just have something maybe a little bit heavier, or you could use your block and just imagine that it's weighing, 20 kilos or something. So you're using your own internal force. So take your feet about hip distance apart. Bend down, pick up the weight that you're using, and then stand on up and bring it really close to the body. Have a soft bend in your knees, and then start to tilt at the hips. So finding your hip hinge, bring the weight down. It could be just below the knees. You could go a little further depending on how it feels. And then push down through the heels to come back up. So you're really using the backs of the legs to lift you. Slowly coming down. Remember, you can stop at the knees, mid-shin, maybe a little lower, but make it all about the hip hinge rather than a squat. And then press down through the heels to come back up. Slow descent down. And slow, controlled lift up. So now we're getting that stretch like we would, say, in our yoga practice and our forward folds, but we're getting it under load, which is just helping the tissues maintain that level of adaptation. Remembering that your body loves load, your tissues love load. It's what helps them to adapt, to grow stronger. And particularly our tendons, they love to have this constant, heavy load for adaptation. Good, let's go for 3 more. Once you've done your 3, just placing the weight down. You might give the legs a little wriggle out. And so you're welcome to do this again with both feet on the floor. Otherwise, I'm going to demonstrate a single leg variation. And the single leg variation could be done with your block as well. You can do it with a little kickstand on the ground so that it helps with your balance. Or you can kick that heel right up towards your butt. So now you're getting a little bit of hamstring work on this side as we lengthen on the standing side. If you're using a weight, you'll probably want to transition to something a little bit smaller than what you were using with the double, just so that you've got a little bit more control. You'll hold it in your opposite hand, and then again, make a little kickstand, soften into your standing leg. Start to hinge at the hips, keep it close to your standing leg, and then drive down through the heel to come up. So you're in control with how deep you go. If you want, you can let that back leg come away so it's more like a warrior 3, and then drive down through the heel to lift up. Slow, controlled movement as you go down and as you come up. And you want to feel this working the back of the leg. So if you're starting to feel it more in your back, you might just need to adjust where the weight is, maybe what you're doing through the standing leg, and seeing if you can get more of a hip hinge rather than a rounding of the spine. So sort of keeping more of the natural curves as you fold forward. And there'll be a natural moment where a little bit of flexion does occur, but if you can maintain as much of that neutral spine for as long as possible, that should really load up the hamstring and the glute a little more. Good, 1 more on this side. And then switch over. So hold it in the opposite hand, kick the leg back behind you. Begin just with the foot on the floor, just to get the action. So notice if you are kind of rounding, see if you can think more chest forward as you fold. And then up. Once you've got that action and you can feel that the butt is doing the work, Then you can maybe hover that back leg away, make it more like a warrior 3. And again, if you're using a block, just imagine that that block weighs a lot more than what it does. So you're using your own intrinsic load. Good, last couple. Nice work, place the weight down. And then grab your stool or whatever surface you've got, maybe it's a table, for this last little piece. So if you've got time, you could repeat the folding forward, either the single leg variation or the double leg. But for the purposes of this video, we're just going to keep going just so that you've got all of the tools in your toolkit. So grabbing a stool or a table, place your foot on the table, and now think of driving down through your heel. So you're really, again, activating the hip, the hamstring, the glute. Push down, stand on up, and then slowly back down to the floor. Push down, stand up, and slowly down. Once you get the hang of this, you can add some load again. So using some weight as you come up and down so that it starts to load up the glute and the hamstring a little more. Good, 3 more. Now, if you're not particularly feeling it around the butt, then you want to just check out what you're doing. So sometimes we have a tendency to kind of lean forward too much or to use a bit of momentum to come up. So really thinking of this leg being the powerhouse as you come up and down. And just, you know, pay attention to where your body position is, seeing if you can maintain that proximal stability again, distal mobility. So the work is happening in and around the hip rather than in the spine. Good. Last 4. Awesome. And then move the step out of the way. Again, you're welcome to do another couple of rounds adding load. But what we'll move into now is a sun salute, thinking about using our hamstrings and our glutes a little bit more. So start with your feet hip distance apart, press out through your heels, and then thinking about your hip hinge and thinking about the backs of the legs, I want you to feel as though you're scrubbing your feet backwards on the mat, but they're stuck. So that's going to start to light up these muscles already. Keep that action as you reach up. Then as you fold forward, bring the weight more into the balls of your feet, feeling like you might topple down. Move slowly and keep that action of trying to scrub your feet back on the mat. Stop when your spine is halfway. Then reach the arms forward, so we're just adding a little bit more load, still with that action of trying to scrub the feet back. And then exhale, fold over your legs. Press down through the heels, use the backs of the legs to lift you back to your halfway lift position. And then exhale, fold, step back, high plank. Push down through the feet, pull the mat back and lower to your belly. You can use your knees if you need. Once you're down on your belly, just keep the hands where they are. Extend out through the toes and tilt your tailbone strongly towards the floor. Begin to lift your chest, lift your feet. Shalabhasana. You can reach around, make sure the butt and the hamstrings are working. Good, lower back down. Press down through the feet and send your hips up and back. Downward facing dog. Put a soft bend in the knees. Try and tilt up with the sitting bones. And then again, feel like you're trying to pull your heels up towards your butt. So this is going to light up the hamstrings a little bit more than what they normally are. Good, and then step forward, top of the mat. Again, pour the weight into the balls of the feet. Feel the backs of the legs light up. You can even bring your hands there just to light them up. And then lead with the back of the chest. Use the backs of the legs to pull you up to stand. Breath in, reach the arms up. Breath out, fold to halfway. Bring the weight to the balls of the feet. Feel like you're trying to scrub your heels back and up. Reach the arms forward. Exhale to fold over your legs. Step back, high plank position. Push down through the feet, pull back on the mat, and slowly lower down to the belly. Keep the hands where they are. This time, pull the heels into the butt. Squeeze the heels in tight, tailbone down. Push your heels up to the sky, knees up, and squeeze your knees together a little more so you access that inner hamstring adductor magnus a little more. Good, release down with control. Press back, downward facing dog. Keep that slight bend in the knees and try and kick your heels towards your butt. Good, drop your knees to the floor. Swing your legs out in front of you. And slightly bend at the knees, press down through the heels and feel like you're pulling your heels again back towards your sitting bones so your hamstrings are a little bit more alive. Take the hands behind your head and then hinging at the hips, start to fold forward. Keep trying to pull your heels back. And then from here, if you like, you can start to straighten the legs, but try and maintain that sense of pulling back as you straighten. So really active Paschimottanasana. Good, press down through the feet, come all the way up. Reach your arms forward in front of you and slowly roll onto your back. And then take a little rest in Shavasana. Well done. A lot of spicy work through the hamstrings there. And lots of ways that you can actually make this practice more challenging or to modify it for your own needs. So use this as a beautiful conditioning practice to help you with your yoga, to help you prevent those proximal hamstring tendinopathies or irritations. And thank you for practicing with me. Have a beautiful day. Hari Om Tat Sat.